All right, you wanted it, and we're delivering it. It's time to dive deep into Pricol Ltd's Q2 FY25 results.
And let me tell you, these reports, they're full of some really interesting stuff.
We've got everything, right? We've got the press release, of course.
Yeah.
We've got the detailed financials, the investor presentation.
Oh, and don't forget the auditor reports.
Oh, right. Standalone and consolidated, the whole 9 yards.
Gotta have them.
And we're doing this for you because you asked for a closer look at, well, how Pricol's doing. They're a big deal, right?
Leading automotive technology company in India.
And known for some pretty incredible precision engineering and product solutions.
Coming straight out of Coimbatore, India.
So our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to make sure you can cut through all this information and really get what's driving Pricol's performance. You know, get that sense of where they might be headed.
What's exciting is that they're actually exceeding expectations this quarter, especially given the current market conditions.
Yeah. You know, first off, the big news, the headline. Pricol's showing some seriously strong growth.
Not just year over year for Q2, they're killing it for the entire first half of the fiscal year, too.
And they're doing this while others in the industry are kind of,
pumping the brakes a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So first, let's look at revenue from operations.
Up over 15% year over year in Q2.
Think about that. For every, say, 100 rupees they earned last year in Q2, they're bringing in 115 this year.
Now, that's what I call growth.
But wait, there's more.
Always.
The profit after tax, or PT, that absolutely took off.
A 35% jump in Q2 compared to the same time last year.
And when we zoom out and look at the first half of FY25, almost 40% increase.
They're not just growing, they're becoming more efficient and profitable.
Which is pretty impressive when you think about how uncertain everything seems right now.
Right.
Okay, so let's break it down. Their Q2 revenue hit over 6.5 billion rupees.
6,500.78 million to be precise.
Right. So what's behind those numbers? What's driving that kind of performance?
Their investor presentation, in all the comments from management, it really points to a mix of strategic choices and just really, really solid operations.
I see.
They've had some awesome new product launches.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
But they're clearly focused on running a tight ship.
I love that. Efficiency plus smart strategy.
It's a winning combo.
Always. Okay, and one more thing I noticed. They specifically called out strong growth in the two-wheeler segment.
Yeah, that jumped out at me too. Looks like they found a really sweet spot.
They're capitalizing on the trends and really choosing segments where they can shine.
Exactly.
Okay, but we can't just talk revenue, right?
Gotta look at profitability.
Our listeners specifically wanted to know about this. So those PT numbers, the 450.70 million for Q2, and then that 906.31 million for the first half of FY25. What's the story there? And how about their margins?
Great questions. And honestly, the news here is just as good.
Really?
Their EBITDA margin, which basically tells us how profitable their operations are, came in at a super healthy 13.4% for Q2. And for the first half of the year, it was 13.39%. Very consistent.
So they're not just growing, but they're growing profitably. That's going to be good news for investors.
Absolutely. And those consistent margins tells me they're laser focused on keeping costs in check. Really important when things are unpredictable.
You mentioned new products earlier. I'm dying to hear more. Our listener is a sucker for a good innovation story.
Buckle up. This is where things get really interesting. They launched not one, but 2 new products in Q2. And guess what? Both aimed right at that booming two-wheeler market we were talking about.
So they're doubling down on what's working. I love that.
Smart move. One is designed specifically for TVS Motor Company's super popular Jupiter scooter. The other is for their Raider motorcycle. What this tells me is they're not just innovating for the sake of it, They're going after specific high-growth segments.
That kind of targeted approach is probably a big reason they're seeing such great revenue growth.
Definitely a contributing factor. Could even be giving them a real edge over the competition.
I could see that. All right, so picture's looking pretty bright so far. But let's zoom out a bit. Beyond these immediate results, what does the bigger picture look like for Pricol? Are there any signs of real, lasting financial strength we should highlight?
There's one thing in their balance sheet that really caught my eye.
Oh.
They have absolutely no long-term borrowings. At the consolidated level, Pricol is debt-free.
No debt. Wow. That's incredible, especially these days. In the automotive world, that's almost unheard of.
It's a strong sign that they're running a really tight ship.
And it gives them so much flexibility, right? They can invest, explore new stuff, even handle any unexpected hiccups without having to scramble for loans.
Precisely. Financial independence, it's like a superpower in this kind of unpredictable business environment.
Okay, so financially sound, they're innovating, they're picking the right markets, all good things.
hmm
But what about their long-term vision? Any clues about what they're planning?
The management commentary here is super interesting. They're not ignoring the challenges, all the economic uncertainties out there,
Hmm.
but they're still really confident about their growth potential.
It's refreshing to see that kind of balance, not just blind optimism.
Agreed. And they specifically mentioned their strong order book. That's a really positive sign.
Yeah, that means they've got a lot of work lined up already. So what else is making them so optimistic?
Well, they keep emphasizing their commitment to technological advancement. And that makes sense given how fast things are changing in the automotive landscape.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Think electric vehicles, all the connected car tech, the whole shebang.
It's a smart move. They're not resting on their laurels. They're actively shaping the future.
Which is super important because the automotive world is changing fast. If you're not looking ahead, you're going to get left behind.
No doubt about it.
Oh, and before I forget, we can't leave out those awards and certifications they racked up.
I was just getting to that. Always a good sign when a company is delivering on the numbers and also, showing they care about things like sustainability and security.
Totally agreed. What did they get?
So first off, they snagged this award from Tata Motors Limited. Sustainability excellence, that's what they call it.
That's a pretty big deal, especially coming from a company like Tata in an industry that sometimes gets, well, criticized for its impact.
Exactly. It shows they're not just focused on profits, they're thinking about the bigger picture.
What else did they get?
They also achieved a couple of key certifications. ISO IE 27700 1.2022. That's for information security management across all their locations.
Wow, that's impressive. They're clearly serious about protecting sensitive data. What's the other one?
TISA X. This one shows they meet really high standards for data security, which is particularly important in the automotive world.
Think about all the data that's flying around between manufacturers, suppliers, customers. Precol's making it clear they can be trusted.
Absolutely.
These days, security and sustainability, they're non-negotiables for a lot of investors and customers.
Couldn't agree more.
It's not just about the bottom line anymore.
It's about responsible operations and building trust.
Exactly. And these achievements show that Pricol is thinking long-term.
They're building a reputation for quality, responsibility, and security. Those are things people value more and more these days.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already in this first part of our Pricol deep dive.
We have.
They delivered some pretty strong financial results, launched innovative new products, and they're clearly committed to responsible business practices. What else will we uncover as we keep digging into these reports?
Let's find out.
Okay, so we've seen Pricol is doing well, but I always want to understand the why behind the numbers and their financial health. That really jumps out.
Yeah, zero debt. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, especially in their industry.
And when you look at their financials, it's more than just like the lack of debt. Their cash flow management, that's really impressive.
Oh, absolutely. Remember we talked about their positive cash flow from operations?
Yeah, they're actually making money, not just shuffling it around.
Exactly. And that gives them so much freedom, so much flexibility, reinvest in the business, chase new opportunities, handle any surprises, all without having to take on a ton of debt.
They basically built this financial fortress. They can make moves without being held back.
Perfect analogy. And they're not just hoarding cash either. Look at their balance sheets over time. You'll see they're consistently investing in their infrastructure, property, plant, equipment.
Putting their money where their mouth is, literally building for the future. Investors love to see that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And those investments, they're probably a big part of why they're having so much success with new product launches.
Well connected, right? Invest, innovate new products, growth. Beautiful cycle.
100%. And that cycle, it gets even stronger thanks to their smart partnerships. Precol's been really strategic about building relationships with some of the biggest names in automotive.
Yeah, partnerships are so key in any industry these days. Who are they working with? Anyone we'd know.
Check out their investor presentation. You'll see names like TVS Motor Company, Hero Motocorp, Bajaj Auto.
Wow, big players in the Indian market.
Huge. And they're even collaborating with global giants like Honda and Yamaha.
Now that's impressive. Clearly, they're a trusted partner. Those relationships must open a lot of doors.
Stability, resources, all of that. It's a win-win. But, it's important to remember that no business is immune to challenges. What are some of the headwinds Pricol might face going forward?
Yeah, every business has its risks. What should we be aware of?
Well, the management is pretty upfront about the uncertainties in the global economy. They specifically mention potential supply chain problems, inflation, and the whole roller coaster of raw material costs.
Those are some serious concerns, especially for a company like Pricol that relies on, global supply chains. What are they doing to address those risks?
They're taking a multifaceted approach. So, cost optimization to counter inflation, diversifying their supply sources to reduce dependence on any one supplier, and they're also beefing up their inventory management systems, making sure they can meet demand even if there are disruptions.
Planning for the bumps in the road. Got to be adaptable these days.
Exactly. They're not just reacting, they're being proactive. And beyond the operational stuff, they're putting a huge emphasis on their people, talent acquisition, development, all of that.
Absolutely. You can have the best tech, the coolest products, but without a skilled and motivated team, it's all for nothing.
Couldn't agree more. They're investing in training, making sure their workforce has the skills to thrive in this crazy, fast-changing industry.
Investing in their people. That's a great sign. Okay, so we've talked about their financial strength, strategic initiatives, how they're managing risk, their commitment to talent. Now the big question, the future. What's next for Pricol? The rest of FY25 and beyond.
Everyone wants a peek into the future, right? Well, let's start with what the management is saying. They're cautiously optimistic about their growth for FY25. They point to their strong order book, a healthy pipeline of future business.
Okay, so they've got a lot of work lined up. Good sign. What else is fueling their optimism?
Well, their strategic focus on those high-growth segments we talked about, especially the two-wheeler market, that's expected to keep paying off. Demand for two-wheelers in markets like India, that's going to remain strong.
They're riding a wave, for sure. What else is on the horizon?
Expansion into new product lines, new technologies. Remember those launches for the TBS Jupiter and Raider? That's just the start. They're going all in on R&D, especially in areas like connected vehicles and components for electric vehicles.
They're not just keeping up, they're leading the charge.
Exactly. That's what's going to set them apart. Positioning themselves as leaders in this whole transition to a more connected, more electric future.
Sounds like they have the strategy, the financials, and the vision. Anything else we should know about their outlook?
One more thing that really stood out was their commitment to sustainability. It's not just a talking point, it's woven into everything they do.
Smart move.
Mm-hmm.
Sustainability is a must-have these days, not a nice-to-have. Consumers demand it, investors expect it.
Absolutely. And they're walking the walk. They've got concrete goals for reducing their environmental impact. They're sourcing materials responsibly, ethical labor practices. It's the whole package.
Holistic approach. It's
Yeah.
becoming more and more important in today's world.
No doubt. So, strong financials, actively investing in the future, and committed to sustainable practices. What are your main takeaways from this part of our Pricol deep dive?
Their adaptability. That's what really strikes me. The automotive industry is like a constantly shifting puzzle. And Pricol isn't just solving it, they're thriving, investing, innovating, really taking control of their destiny.
Totally agree. They see the challenges, they adapt, they seize the opportunities. They're not waiting for the future to happen, they're building it.
And that proactive mindset, it's everywhere. New products, sustainability, their people.
They get it. Success isn't just about profit anymore, it's about making a positive impact.
Well said. Pricol's story is proof that a company can do well by doing good. Okay, we've looked at their performance, strategies, risks, and their outlook for the future. We've really covered it all. What's next for Pricol? What should our listener be watching for as this company continues to grow? As we wrap up this Pricol deep dive, I keep thinking about that sustainability award from Tata Motors. That's not just a pat on the back.
It's a real statement. They're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to sustainability.
And it's not just about, checking boxes. They're making it a core part of how they do business.
Totally. It's about more than just reducing their own environmental footprint. They're thinking bigger. Employees, customers, the whole community, the planet.
Creating value for everyone.
Exactly. And they've set some pretty ambitious targets to make it happen. Reductions in energy use, less water, less waste. Plus, responsibly sourced materials, ethical labor practices throughout their supply chain.
It's a whole system. And it's something we're seeing more and more companies doing, especially as people get more aware of, the impact of what they buy.
Right. Consumers want to support businesses that share their values. And investors, they're paying attention to. ESG investing, environmental, social governance, that's becoming a huge deal.
So doing the right thing is actually good for business.
Makes sense, right? Pricol gets it. Sustainability and profit, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do well by doing good.
And they're going beyond just minimizing harm. They're actually developing new technologies that could make a real difference. Think about their investments in connected vehicles, those EV components.
Absolutely. Those innovations, they're not just tweaks. They have the potential to really change how we think about transportation, the impact it has on the planet.
It's exciting to think about a future where getting around is efficient, convenient, and doesn't cost us the earth.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Prequel is not just adapting to a changing world, they're actively trying to make it better.
That's a powerful story.
It really is. They're showing that businesses can be a force for good.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about. Precol's Q2 FY25 performance. Strong. Financially, strategically, in terms of sustainability, you name it. They're definitely a company to keep an eye on.
I think our listener will agree. They're on the move, that's for sure. It's going to be really interesting to see where they go from here.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into Pricol Limited. We've covered a lot, but there's always more to learn.
That's what makes business so fascinating, right? It never stands still.
Exactly. So to our listener, stay curious, keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep into the companies and industries that shape our world. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.